y'all. What's up? And welcome back to another episode of Versions of Healing, which is the interview segment of the Healing Version podcast. On today's episode, we talk truth, transformation, and the real work of becoming whole. Today's guest is someone whose story is going to touch your heart, challenge your thinking, and make you laugh at the same time. I am honored to welcome Jane McGuinness, registered clinical counselor and the author of a powerful, darkly but funny memoir called Always Hungry. In her book, Jane opens up about losing 103 pounds, surviving divorce, raising three children, including one that is autistic and another one that is transgender, and also confronting the pressure of diet culture and body shame head on. With honesty, compassion, and a bold sense of humor, Jane breaks down what emotional hunger really is and how we can stop trying to fill our wounds with food, perfectionism, or people pleasing. She blends her professional insight with her lived experience to help us understand self worth, mindfulness, identity, and healing on a deeper level. If you've ever struggled with your body, your relationship with food, or the pressure to be enough, in a world obsessed with appearance, this conversation is for you. Get ready because Jane is about to remind us that freedom starts with self acceptance and healing begins when we tell the truth about our hunger. Welcome to the show, Jane. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me, Deborah, and thank you for that lovely introduction.
Oh,
My
you're most
pleasure.
welcome. No problem. So I just want to kind of start with your journey and
Mhm.
talk a little bit about your book, Always Hungry. It's both raw and hilarious. What inspired you to write such an honest memoir about emotional eating and body image?
Thank you for the question. I mean, there are a few very, very serious reasons. And when I decided to write it, it just hit me and I just couldn't stop. And very quickly I realized if I was going to do this, it needed to be completely honest, which is why it's so raw. I think that surprised a lot of people because I felt if I was going to help others who are navigating what I was, and yeah, perhaps they see themselves or part of themselves in where I was, 10, 15, 20 years ago, then I knew that without complete honesty and vulnerability, I wasn't going to be able to do that. So I was driven for a few reasons. Certainly the slim privilege now that I have and I feel in society really, really saddens me because I'm of the treatment I receive now as opposed to when I was in a much larger body. And that was just it still is. It's something that is really, really upsetting. So I wanted to speak to that. And I also then combining my clinical knowledge with my life experience, I wanted to talk and share what I learned, which is that, the book is called Always Hungry because I am, but not for food. And I never was. It never was a hunger for food. There was so much more at play. And I feel for so many of us getting to those the drivers, the causes, the real reasons we're in the pantry comfort eating or the fridge like I was at 10 at night, all over the place with just completely dysregulated and escaping, not dealing with processing emotions, everything that goes into the reasons we comfort eat.
Hmm.
I learnt that and I overcame it. And I mean, I still have hard days, don't get me wrong, because I'm human. But I wanted to share what I learned because I feel like so many people, we don't always connect, being in the fridge, like randomly, like shuffling through food with the emotions, with the anxiety or the stress, whatever those drivers are that lead us to the kitchen when we're not hungry. Because I know I wasn't. Most of the time I was too busy snacking to ever get hungry. It was just a complete mess. And yeah, I truly want to help people. And if I can do that and anybody finds benefit in my story and it helps them, then yeah, I'll be happy. That's the goal.
So many people struggle silently with emotional eating. What were the earliest moments when you realized that food was feeling more than hunger?
Mm, yeah. I mean, it certainly started in my teenage years, like looking back. I mean, I didn't have a problem as a young child, but, unhappy parents, which is not uncommon. So there was some small t trauma, like growing up. And looking back, I didn't realize I was equating that with love and safety and security as a child and as a teenager. And then I stopped with organized sports and started to fill out. And then there's some high school bullying from, the mean girls or the boys. then, then it'd be foods. Oh my gosh. And then, of course, so the first thing I would do is go to the kitchen and comfort eat without realizing. And, I got to, and of course, I tried all of the ridiculous diets that don't work, which was another reason I wanted to write the book. I found, it's just, of course, it doesn't work. I mean, it's a temporary solution. I had to get to the real issues. And so that was a huge journey that continues today. But yeah, it certainly started back then. And in my and at a certain point, I discovered in 2011 Neen Roth's books on breaking free from emotional eating. So When Food is Love, her books were really, really helpful in helping me to start to question like what's really going on here. I mean, in my 20s, I definitely tried every diet. I don't know if I'd really, really had an awareness of what the comfort eating was about. So it's just been an ongoing journey. Certainly in my 30s, when everything changed and my marriage fell apart. I was at that point where I was making a lot of healthy, positive changes and doing the work, and a lot of self-help books. I'm pretty sure I read every self-help book on the planet, and they really do help. The good ones anyway.
So would you say that the emotional eating, the reason those diets don't help is because it's more of a psychological thing than just needing a diet fix?
For sure. I mean, there's so many pieces to the puzzle, but for myself, I mean, I wasn't getting any movement, which didn't help because I wasn't getting all the happy chemicals going. Like if I go for a walk now, I feel better. But yeah, absolutely. I was there in no way addressing the root causes of the comfort eating, the emotional eating. Like when I was, often we don't realize it's what we're needing is nurturing. We're seeking love, we're seeking comfort. And yeah, for me, the food was a substitute for that. So I had to get to the bottom of, it's often, I think, with disordered eating and, I know my weight struggles, they're a symptom of the underlying, the problems there, the lack of self-worth, the shame, the lack of confidence, the anxiety I was struggling with. So there was that piece of it, which was just huge, and yeah, I had to recognize like what was really going on. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the other piece I should quickly answer too was the question with diets. I found when I tried every diet, of course, for a short term period, if you're on some kind of restriction and my intake, I was exerting more energy than I was bringing in. I'd drop some weight in the short term, but it was always a quick fix, and it was never sustainable because the no sugar, no carbs, no bread, no meat, no dairy, whatever it was, no fun, all of these things. It didn't work because it wasn't common sense and long-term moderation, which is what I learned in time was what my body needed. I had to get to the core of when I was overeating, like what was really going on there, and then just starting to make healthy, sustainable changes because I don't believe diets work. Because as soon as I came off the diet, of course, if I'd not let myself have bread for a month, it was the first thing I wanted, or sugar, or whatever it was. So then I'd spend the next 2 weeks eating as much bread as I could and regain. So it was just, yeah, I had to learn that was just no solution. So there was the other piece of just learning what my body needed in terms of moderation and just, I just started with honestly walking. I'd just start for a short walk, go a bit further. But yeah, there were a lot of pieces to the puzzle, but the psychological aspects I think are essential. And I don't believe, certainly for myself and with clients that I've worked with, I don't believe we can make permanent, sustainable changes in our life if we don't address the drivers, the psychology, like the root causes, the emotion of the emotional eating, which is why actually these just came. I had these bookmarks printed to match the book because I love pink, so it's a bit of a theme. But I say in here, and I say in the first chapter, an eating disorder is a life disorder. I mean, for me, it was absolutely a life disorder.
Absolutely. So would you
Yeah.
say that, or I should ask, can you describe like how you were mentally when you
Mhm.
decided to make the change? Because I feel like when you decide, like even starting to walk just a little bit, there had to be like a mental switch to be like, okay, I gotta make a lifestyle change. So
Yeah.
can you kind of describe what that was like?
Yeah, for sure. There were definitely a few turning points. I mean, there was one time, where I didn't recognize myself in a photo my mother had taken, like I'd had a baby, and it just hadn't occurred to me. And when I look back, I realized there was a girl I was struggling. I was unhappy. I didn't have the energy I wanted. I had 3 little kids that they're grown now, but I realized I want to be able to, go skiing with them and not be tired and, not struggle because, of course, my pants weren't fitting at that point, So I realized I wanted to be active with my kids. I wanted to set an example for them. And I realized I needed to heal emotionally. I needed, because it just wasn't healthy. And they weren't witnessing healthy behaviors. If I'm comfort eating or sneaking food and then, the secret eating, I think that so many of us do, because I was always supposed to be on a diet, so I was never allowed to have anything. So then, of course, I'd be comfort eating or I'd be eating something, and then which brings up those feelings of shame. I mean, it was just a whole mess. And so I realized, no, like this is not going to be my story. Like I'd always enjoyed exercise. Like when I was a kid, I played team sport. And so I guess when I began to walk and reconnect with my body somatically, I realized this feels good. And I felt better emotionally. I felt better physically. So I continued to make positive changes. And now I love exercise. Like it's just something I do for fun. It's not a chore. Like so I just rediscovered my body and capabilities, and I realized, yeah, I want to wake up with energy. So it wasn't about, and certainly right now it's not about what society thinks or what's socially acceptable or having a certain physique. It's about waking up with energy, feeling good, like being able to hike with my kids and bike ride and just live fully, because I wasn't. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, once you made those lifestyle changes, how would you say that like life started to change for you, like as a mom?
Mm. It was incredibly, there were ups and downs, but overall it was an incredibly positive experience, because what I learnt was that when I started, and I love Tara Brach's work on radical acceptance. So, and then that was another really helpful book. But what I realized was, when I can radically accept like myself and where I was, I mean, paradoxically, that's when we can make changes. So when I started to make changes, and just like small, incremental changes, like, okay, let's just start. I'd always loved cooking. Let's just start exploring more healthy recipes, like yummy warm salads, like making sure I get enough protein, eating healthy carbs, like just trying to have, cut out the processed or have less processed food. So it was a slow journey. I think the reason I've been able to keep it off was that it wasn't a crazy crash diet. I did it the old fashioned way, and I did it I with self compassion. I just decided, okay, I'm going to take care of my body. I'm going to slow down. I'm going to start to make small changes. And I had to accept, okay, this is going to take time. It took decades, of emotional eating to gain the weight. And I think so many of us just want a quick fix. We want it to drop off in, 30 days. And so for me, it was years of healing. And I think that's why for the last decade I've been at a stable weight that I'm comfortable with. And that, I feel good with where I'm at because I have energy. I can now go and, the kids and I can go and do some big hikes, and it brings joy. And that was what about, just finding the joy in life again. And I didn't want to be held back by the fact that I was physically uncomfortable, and I couldn't wear a backpack, and, because my knees would hurt if I, like all of those things that came with carrying too much weight. Like it was just taking a toll on my body. And emotionally, of course, I was really struggling with a lack of confidence and self-worth. Yeah.
And your book challenges the diet culture and the toxic narratives around body size. What do you wish people understood about emotional hunger versus physical hunger?
I think the work around that I learned around interoceptive awareness, I think that's really key, because I think often when with disordered eating, there's a complete disconnect from, everything above, the neck and below. So often there's no awareness of hunger and fullness. There's just there's a disconnect. And when we're anxious, and that sympathetic nervous system kicks in, often if we're in the kitchen frantically eating, and there's, without even realizing, people are just finding something to put in their mouth sometimes. And what's happening is that we're in that fight or flight mode sometimes, and not aware that we're dysregulated, and we're seeking nurturing and safety and comfort. And sometimes when we're activated, what we're really needing is just to engage, that bring down like the nervous system, to get back to that safe space. So I find yoga really helpful, meditation. So it doesn't, not necessarily going and doing a huge workout. It's just, okay, let's feel safe in the body and start to feel regulated again. Because if we're angry, we had an argument with our spouse, or we're upset about something our mother-in-law said, and we get into that state of agitation, then often food is the first place we go, and without an awareness of that, I mean, mind you, whether it's bulimia or anorexia or binge eating disorder, I mean, they're two sides of the same coin. When people are under stress, they will move away from food or toward food. I was one of those people that moved toward it, but some people will move away from it. But either way, we're just trying to feel safe in the body. So I had to recognize I was completely dysregulated a lot of the time. I was under stress. My eldest, that is neurodivergent and non-binary, is fabulous, but wasn't diagnosed until 17 with autism. So that was having a 4-year-old undiagnosed on the spectrum, and a 2-year-old and a newborn. I was struggling to cope, and so I'd go straight to the kitchen when I was under stress and dealing with anxiety and not realizing what was happening at the time. Whereas really, I needed some self-care and nurturing. I needed to take deep breaths, and I didn't have those tools in my toolkit, which is why I want to share them. And I'm continuing to write because I want to share them in the next book so that more people who may be in a similar position, can take something positive away from my writing. That's my hope.
Absolutely. So, are you familiar with the show My 600-Pound Life?
I'm not, but I don't. I'm up here in Canada, even though I'm
Okay.
Australian, and I don't have, I don't have regular television. I do have Netflix though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, the show, you have people who are 600 pounds or more, or they're close to 600 pounds, and they, of course, are on the show because they want to lose weight.
Yeah.
And one of, like, basically, they go to this doctor, and this one doctor, and he kind of like sees where they are, how much weight they need to lose to get a surgery. I
Mm,
guess like the sleeve or whatever surgery. And just, just sitting here and listening to you and everything that you're saying, that makes perfect sense because the eating disorders, there's something underlying. It's not just, oh, go lose some weight and then we do a surgery. Well, if you don't
yeah.
get to the root of it, which they don't on the show,
Mm,
there's no psychological evaluation, there's no therapy, there's no talking to a counselor. It's just, and a lot of those people, they either revert back or they end up succumbing to their
mm.
weight and all of the
Oh,
health issues they have. So I think that, I don't know, I feel like I want to write into the show. I'm like, maybe you should incorporate like some counseling to where these people can tackle what the true issue is, and they start healing from that, and then they can successfully lose the weight without even having to go to a doctor. Because some of these people, I think the
yeah.
doctors like in Houston, Texas, and a lot of them are traveling like from all these different states to get there in order to be evaluated to get the surgery. But
Yeah.
there's no mental evaluation.
Yeah.
I never even thought about that, and I'm real big on the mental. And I just watched the show, and I'm just like, man, like they just, and it's
Yeah.
like they just and then they have people who enable them. They
Mm.
have somebody that's like, because most of these people are bedridden, they can't even get out of the bed, so
Oh,
somebody's feeding them. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp, your online therapy solution. I'm going to be real with y'all. Therapy changed everything for me. Just having someone to talk to who's trained to help me and unpack life and reflect without judgment, that was powerful. BetterHelp is an online therapy platform that makes getting started easy. You fill out a quick questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist within a few days. And say you get matched with a therapist and they're not a good fit for you, you can switch at any time at no extra cost. So if you are ready to start your own healing journey, visit betterhelp.com/the healing version to get 10% off your first month. Again, that's betterhelp.com/the healing version. Thank you. Just most likely a spouse or a child that don't want to tell their parent no.
and it is heartbreaking.
It
It's
is.
absolutely heartbreaking. And often I do believe these things, not always, but I think it often it stems from, an unhappy childhood. So maybe there was some horrifically, like some type of abuse, or or possibly small t trauma, and you didn't feel loved by your parents, they were unhappy, and very quickly we equate food with love, and it becomes comfort, and then it's, as we know, junk food's addictive, so there's the whole physiological aspects at play too. I mean, my microbiome was a mess. Of course, it's designed to be addictive. So the more sugar I had or simple carbs, the more I craved. So that was another puzzle piece I had to learn and heal over time with my tummy and what's going on in here, and why now, if I'm having something super yummy that's also super healthy, like salmon, and I don't know, some kind of crazy delicious like roast veggie salad with quinoa or whatever it is, I've come to love it and my body craves more of it. But
Yeah.
way back when I'd go straight for the chocolate, of course I craved more chocolate. That's what my body was getting. It was an absolute addiction. But yeah, the emotional piece is, it's just so essential to address that. I mean, for myself, I guess it was concurrently, but I do believe when somebody's wanting to make positive changes, seeking a therapist, going and finding those self-help books, and just, yeah, starting to ask those tough questions is key, because you're right, someone can lose all of the weight, but essentially we're still going to have the same challenges in life. If it's not related to our bodies, then we'll have the same problems. You can be in a smaller body, but if you're still feeling a lack of shame, a lack of self-worth, if you're still angry at your father or your ex-husband and still full of pain, hurt, it's still there in a smaller body. We've got to get to the root of what's really going on when we're in the pantry at 3 a.m. Yeah.
Right. And I feel like even like getting having a smaller body but not tackling the true issue could just lead you into a new addiction. Maybe it's like maybe you
Yeah.
like your new body, but now what are you using to, comfort and
Yeah.
fill that void, or, however you're feeling emotionally. So yeah,
Absolutely. I think it's an escape. Yeah, it's an absolute escape. And, some people it'll be sex, it'll be drugs. For some people, it's alcohol. For myself, it was food. But essentially, I was escaping my life when I was under stress, and I think most of us have some kind of escape. And in my case, it obviously became extremely, and it was unhealthy. It was out of control. It was completely dysregulated. Yeah.
would you say that you witnessed a lot of people that are like you, or not like you now, but that were in that same situation, that was using food as a comfort? Is that kind of more so that pushed you into the counseling aspect of like helping people?
Absolutely. I mean, most definitely. Of course, when I navigated divorce, we found a terrific counselor, and that's when I decided I wanted to go back to school and study postgraduate psychology and learn more, because I realized there was a need, and I also knew that with my lived experience, I could help people. I remember one experience with somebody who had a very very dysfunctional relationship with her mother, and was struggling, and I saw myself, desperate to make healthy, positive changes. But yeah, at the root, the challenge was the relationship with the mother that needed healing, and a complete lack of, there was just so much pain and a lack of self worth, and without addressing that, truly addressing it, healing and making peace, any short term quick fix, I don't believe, it's not going to stick. So we're not getting to the bottom of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, what are some signs that someone's relationship with food is more emotional than physical?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what people really need to realize is that, we're only fooling ourselves if we're not being honest about why we're snacking. If we're not hungry and we find ourselves constantly searching for a snack. I mean, perhaps you're not getting enough, protein and enough of the right nutrients, and it can be a cycle of simple carbs and then craving more of them. Yeah, but I think if somebody realizes, immediately they might have an argument with their husband, and suddenly they find themselves reaching for the biscuit tin. Like there's a connection there, and if we're not going to, we need to slow down and acknowledge and recognize. Okay, even if somebody chooses, yes, I'm sad, I want to eat the biscuits. Even just expressing that, saying that out loud, takes away the power, and then we're owning the fact that, okay, I'm feeling sad right now. This is the choice I'm making, but there's a connection here. So I think that's, yeah,
What do
incredibly
you
helpful.
think about addiction as a whole? Because, like, okay, so I'm reading this book, and the lady in the book, she's a recovering alcoholic,
Mhm.
and like her life has been like super stressful lately. Like, she's not liking her full-time job.
Mm.
Her husband's sister is on her deathbed. Her father had a heart attack, so she's just like really, really like going through it. And like every time she has this a situation with any of it, she just instantly goes to drinking. It's
Mm.
like every time something happens, a trigger happens, it's alcohol. And I'm just like, is that how addiction works? Like there's a trigger and then the numbing mechanism, whatever it is. The trigger, numbing mechanism.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great word because I think a lot of us will numb our feelings with food. I know I was. Absolutely. And I joke, I do write in a very I have a lot of dark humor and I can write sometimes in a light-hearted way and I'll joke, that then I have two problems. If I'm numbing my emotions as I was with my feelings with food, well, and then, I'm overeating it. All I end up with is two problems. Like my pants are tight, my stomach hurts, like I feel uncomfortable, I feel physically unwell. If I've had too much sugar, I can feel sick. But then I'm still left with the original problem. It hasn't gone anywhere. I'm still hurt or angry or upset.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
yeah, it's doing the work. It's showing up for ourselves and saying, you know what? I want to make positive changes in my life. Like this is not for myself. It wasn't healthy and sustainable. And it was never really about the food. It was about what am I not addressing here? Like what is not being dealt with? And for when somebody reaches for a drink, like what are they avoiding?
Right. But I always think of it as like a numbing thing. Like, okay, so if I drink, if I smoke, if I do whatever, then it's going to make me feel in a way to where I'm not thinking about whatever that thing is that's bothering me.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
it makes sense, especially on a psychological aspect of it. So, would you say that anybody that comes to you, in order for them to actually receive help, it's a decision where they have to decide it's time, I want help, I need help? Or do you have
Hmm.
that are brought to you like, oh, this is my family member and I think they need help?
Yeah, certainly in my clinical experience, what I know is that if the individual isn't ready to make the changes and ready to confront the shadows, to do the work, then it's not going to be helpful for them to be there. They need to want to be there because it's tough. If we're addressing lifetimes of pain or dysfunction and trauma, it's that's a lot to unpack. It's incredibly tough, and it's absolutely it's so essential to be ready to do that. And people will be ready when they're ready. And I think that can be hard for family members too. If you're wanting somebody, you can see what needs to happen, but we can only move as fast as the client is able to go emotionally. So if they're not ready, then yeah, that can be really tough for family and for loved ones. But ultimately it comes from the person who's saying, okay, it's time. I'm going to make some positive changes here.
So do you have people that want to like have an intervention and like say, oh, I'm gonna bring this family member in?
Certainly, occasionally in the past. Right now, I'm actually winding down my practice because I am writing full time. So I'm moving into writing my
Okay.
and third books full time. So I'm moving away from a clinical practice because I realized I can reach far more people through my writing than I can through working one on one. So while I enjoyed that, it was time for this next stage. And my youngest child will be going to university soon, so I wanted to travel and write, and I wanted to be able to do that, and then yeah, make it was just time for another change in Jane's world.
Oh, awesome. So how long were you in counseling before you decided?
Sure. About 5 years. I did that after with my divorce, I separated. I went back to school. I mean, I'd had two undergrads from Australia. I was an elementary teacher a long time ago before I had my children. And then I was a stay-at-home mother. We moved to Canada. I work transfer with my ex-husband actually. And then I realized with the divorce, well, I needed a career, but I wanted a challenge. I wanted to go and do something and contribute in society in a positive way. The children were getting older. And so I loved the work and the study. But now I realize I can take what I've learned and apply that and help people through my writing. And so this is the next next logical step, like the next chapter for me.
Okay, awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
So you'll be writing many, many books, I'm
Mm,
guessing. So a lot of
absolutely.
help books.
Yes, most definitely. The next one will absolutely, there'll be a lot of the how and the why and more about what I am learning, particularly as I get into that perimenopause stage and I'm starting to navigate all of that with regard to like, okay, what does my body need now to maintain my health as everything starts to change? So writing about that too, and doing it in a way that is, yeah, well, hopefully people find enjoyable, you know. Yeah, so it's, I certainly can't stop now. I've started. It was sort of like a dam burst when I discovered a passion for writing. So now it's truly what I love to do. So I want to continue and, yeah, reach as many people as I can.
Do you have like a blog or anything that's in
Mhm.
what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can go to All Things Moderation on Substack. So we have that, and also janemcguinnesstheauthor.com. Then there's a link to all of my socials and a link to the Substack where I'm continuing to write. Yeah, because I really do truly, truly want to reach people. And in any small way, if I can help make a positive difference for someone else, if they can then go and make some positive changes and feel better, yeah, I'm on a bit of a mission right now. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I love it. So I kind of
Thanks.
want to talk about navigating through divorce and major life transition. So divorce, as we know, it can shape a person emotionally, spiritually. How did your separation influence your healing journey?
Mm, it was, in hindsight, I think it was inevitable because I was married to a very nice man, but we met in university years ago. We were very, very young when we married and had children. And I do believe I hadn't fully grown and figured out who I was and what I wanted because we do grow and change. Who we are isn't who we were 10 years ago, and it's not who we'll be in another 10 years. So we were busy with the kids, and then we grew apart, and yeah, it was horrific. It was incredibly sad because we're still friends. He's a very nice man, but I realized, I was on a journey that was taking me elsewhere,
Hmm.
and yeah, it was, of course, for the children, horrific for them because you never go into a marriage thinking that it will end. And yeah, and of course, the reality for children, and it happens to so many of them, is that, yeah, then I'm packing for mum's house, I'm packing for dad's house. There's massive upheaval for them. So it was an extremely challenging time in my life, but it was happened concurrently when I was making positive changes, and I realized that, yeah, the life I had wasn't the life that was ultimately sadly fulfilling in certain ways that I needed it to be. And I didn't include certain things were not included in the book just out of respect for my ex-husband and the children. But
Oh,
yeah, it's fair to say that we grew apart, and it was, yeah, I couldn't stay in the marriage, and that was incredibly heartbreaking when I realized that.
hmm. Okay. So with parenting and an autistic and also a transgender child,
Mhm.
so you're raising three, including one with autism, one that's transgender. How has this shaped the way you view identity, acceptance, and resilience?
My eldest has just, and that they've all taught me, and I think our children do teach us, but my
Mhm.
eldest just incredibly fearless. I mean, they're non-binary and neurodivergent, so, and on the spectrum, of course, and they challenge me to be a better person. I mean, part of my healing journey was learning self-compassion. I've always had compassion for others, but giving myself that same compassion, oh gosh, that's on a bad day. I still have to remind myself, to
Yeah.
go easy on myself. It's not
Yeah.
about the size. It never was. It's about, yeah, it's about that self-acceptance and love. And so my eldest is just wonderful, just phenomenal in helping me to, and of course, I've absolutely always, always loved and accepted them. But there's a lot of learning on my part, absolutely a lot of learning, and trying to understand their lived experience and what it's like for them, in this world. We're very, very lucky to be here in Vancouver in BC, Canada, where, yeah,
Mhm.
there is a lot of acceptance, and I think they feel not always, but for the most part, safe. But yeah, it's not an easy path. So they've really helped me just to deepen, I believe, deepen my compassion and understanding and awareness, for anybody who is a minority and as they are. And gosh, yeah, they've helped me to become a better person. Absolutely. I'm incredibly grateful. And I see their struggles today sometimes. And it's heartbreaking, of course. They struggle with anxiety and depression, which I share in the book. And as a parent, it's heartbreaking when you're wanting to help. All you want to do is fix your child. You just want to help them, to feel
Yes.
happy. And, but
Absolutely.
yeah, our kids they all just need unconditional love and acceptance. And so my goal is to give that to every single human I meet, which is another reason I spoke out, because of this slim privilege now that I have in this body, and diet
Yeah.
culture, it's just all tied up with morality and racism. And it's horrific that I know I'm privileged now when I leave the house, and because of my body. And that's just, it's just disgusting. And it's really sad. It's really sad, because I was the same
Mhm.
person when I was 100 pounds heavier. And I had so much shame for so long, because society told me, I feel like the patriarchy told me, well, you're not good enough. You need to look a certain way. Society told me your thighs are too big. It was, you're not acceptable. You're not lovable. And and then I had to look at, okay, what's going on? Because internally, I didn't feel worthy. Like I didn't have that love. And so, yeah, my eldest has sort of a really circular way of saying, yeah, they've helped me to become a better person. And I tell my kids every day and remind them, see the soul, not the shape of somebody when you meet them. It doesn't matter, you know, and it's frankly no one else's business. We always forget that someone else's body is actually none of your business. Everybody has a comment, everybody has an opinion, everybody has something rude to say,
Yes.
and it's
Yes.
no one's business. And so I just teach my kids, let's just all leave the house and be good, kind people to every single human you meet, because everyone's struggling. Some people might look like they've got it together, but I guarantee they're struggling with their own challenges, and we all are. So let's just offer everyone kindness and compassion. So when I started to give that to myself, I realized, wow, we all need to ideally get to that point, so then we can give it to everyone else we meet unconditionally.
Yes. I
Yeah.
have on my shower curtain it says, "In a world where you can be anything, be kind."
Yes. Oh,
You just
love
never
that.
know like what somebody's going through, what they're on their way to do to themselves. I've heard stories
Yeah.
where somebody's like, "Yeah, I was on my way to take my life, and this person asked how my day was going," and that just made me change my mind because I'm like, "Oh, somebody does care about me." So it's just you just
Yeah.
never know like how you can change somebody's day just by being kind.
Oh, I
Great.
love that. No, I love that, Deborah. You're so right. I learned that as I got older. If somebody's cranky at the supermarket, I'll be extra kind to them. Or if there's a checkout, person I'm going through with my groceries and they're cranky, I will honestly now try and give them more love and kindness, because I see they're just in pain. I don't know what their day's been like. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, we share that. And then there is that flow on effect. I find if I'm kind to that person, there's a chance that they'll then smile at the next person who might be having a hard day. And we all forget that in this world. You're right. Like, just be kind to each other and share
Yeah.
some love.
It's easy and so simple. It's so
Oh,
simple.
and
Just
it costs nothing. That's what we all forget. It costs
absolutely
nothing to be
nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just be kind. I mean, it's. I really strive every day to treat people how I want to be treated. So how I want people to handle me, that's how I handle others. So
absolutely
I feel
love
like
that.
if we use that rule for the most part, I think we'll all be okay.
Oh, oh my goodness. I know. It's so true though. Can you imagine if everybody left the house today and decided, okay, I'm going to be extra kind and loving to everyone I meet. There's going to be no judgment. I'm just going to give love. I mean, wow.
Man, it'll be a wonderful world. We would have, oh man, we'll have a wonderful, just
Oh,
everything all around. It'll be less anxiety, less pressure. Oh man, yeah, yeah.
it's so,
It would be a complete
yeah.
change.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And I am definitely writing, speaking to that more in book two as well, as I continue to learn and grow, as we all do. We all need that reminder. I think some of us have forgotten. We've really forgotten. Yeah.
So what
So
do you think is a misunderstanding that some parents have when it comes to supporting their children that may not be what society approves of?
yeah, a great question. I think firstly, what parents need to remember is that it's not our journey. We're not allowed to live vicariously through our kids. They're not a mini me. I think when my eldest was born, I just had this assumption that they would grow up and just be just like me and she'd make similar choices. And of course, it's they're not, this their life is not an extension of mine. I think we forget that as parents. We don't I think our children need unconditional love. They need to be heard. And that was just, yeah, there was some really powerful learning in the last decade when I realized, wow, my child's life will be very different because they are very different to me. They're not a carbon copy. Sometimes our kids, people comment, they say, oh, they look just like you. And I think, yes, but they're an entirely separate, autonomous human. And
Mm-hmm.
so parents to respect that, completely respect it, validate it, honor that, honor their journey and their experiences. And then with curiosity, now I embrace and ask questions so I can better understand my eldest. I think that's just key for parents to realize, this is not, we don't get to live our lives over through them. This is, our kids just need love and compassion, and they just need our support, absolutely, unconditionally. And so, yeah, I just encourage all parents, even if I think there's often a lot of fear, and it's really hard to accept, your child is going to change. I mean, my eldest is on T now, testosterone, and I had to recognize, well, I love pink. I love embracing that feminine side of myself. I love all of that. My eldest never did, and they don't, and that's wonderful. That's who they are. So just recognizing, yeah, this is, I regret when they were little, there were certain outfit choices that I would insist they wear when they were younger, and I wasn't. I was a young mother. I was in my late 20s. I wasn't honoring and recognizing that even at a very early age, like they were starting to, not want to wear certain things or look a certain way. And I regret not validating that. Like that was a mistake I would not make again. So my advice, or if you have a child, who's speaking out, saying, I'm not comfortable wearing this, I don't feel that way, just please listen to them, honor them. Yeah. Give them that right as an autonomous human who deserves to be heard and honored. I think, yeah, I would definitely do a few things differently, but I was young and I did the best I could, and I it's a healing journey for all of us. But I do regret not listening. When a 3 or 4 year old comes to you and says, "Mummy, I want to wear this or I want to do that," or I want to cut my hair super short. I wish I'd listened, truly listened, and I do now. Yeah, I made those mistakes, and I'm human. I mean, we all do as parents.
And I was gonna say that. I was gonna say we live and we learn, and then as we grow older, we grow wiser. Like for example, I have a 11-year gap between my older kids and my twins that are 7,
Oh,
and so the way I mother my twins is not the same way that I mother my other older children, and I
yeah,
hear it a lot. And they're like, well, they get away with this and they didn't get to do that. And I'm like, well, I'm a more patient, understand a lot more. I've learned so much more between when you guys were small and now. So
yeah,
I'm not going to mother the same. It's just, and then I have to remind myself, to have grace and not beat myself up for all of the trials and all the mistakes or whatever you want to call it with the older kids. Like,
yeah,
look, I was doing the best I could with what I knew and what I had with them.
exactly,
And now, I learned things that, I won't do that again. So now with them, I'm not doing it again. We don't repeat the same things. We live and we learn.
absolutely,
So yeah, definitely like you did the best you could with what you have though. And
yeah.
here you are and you're loving and caring. And I know your children love you. You have such a loving and caring and nurturing spirits.
Oh,
So
thank you.
So yes,
Thank,
so the mother in her late 20s is gone. She's no longer. You're
yeah,
a wiser and better mom now. So I
thank
just
you.
wanted to say that.
Oh,
But
no,
no,
I appreciate that. That means a lot. Thank you. I am, yeah, I'm determined to get up every day and do better, and we can heal. And I think that's the beauty of life. My children and I, particularly with my eldest, we have the opportunity to heal, some of those fractures in the relationship that do go back, to when they were young and undiagnosed, and I didn't realize, and they didn't have the words to express how they were feeling. They weren't aware at that point that they were non-binary, but we're healing, and Yeah, and I think we also need to forgive ourselves. You're right. We just show up every day and do the best we can. I think not repeating those mistakes is key, and just learning and growing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, in
Yeah.
your book, you talk about reclaiming self worth. What did that process look like internally for you?
Yeah. Well, and it was all internal work, because I think was key even now is recognizing self-worth isn't about the scale. It's not about whether I am in a large or a small body. It's about, do I feel confident when I go out into the world? Do I feel, I think in the past I let the judgments and the fat comments and the things that the judgment that and the unkindnesses from years ago, which did happen, I let that determine how I felt in the morning, and I didn't feel confident. I was struggling with a lack of self worth, but now I realize it was the weight was the symptom. It was about the fact that, thanks to issues in my childhood, I didn't feel confident. I didn't love myself. I didn't feel good enough in the world, and I didn't feel like I measured up. So yeah, right now I realize it was about the weight, and it wasn't, at my core. Now it doesn't matter whether, and I have to remember that if I wake up, it's not about what my thighs look like when I look in the mirror,
Mhm.
it's, or whether I'm getting wrinkles, which of course, I'm getting older, we all are, and that's a gift. Learning that was really important. But yeah, it was just essential, to realize actually we're all equally inherently worthy. Absolutely every single one of us, whether we're born, irrespective of our physical form, whether we're born rich or poor, and no matter where we are in the world, like every single human is equally worthy. No one is better or worse than anyone else. No one is, and I think, we don't get those messages. I didn't growing up, I didn't hear what I needed to hear. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No one is better or worse than you.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think that there was a lot of lack in that in childhood where you got
Hmm.
someone to build you up and to give you that we're able to give to our children now. And I mean I can appreciate it in a way that I know how I felt as a child, so now I know what I want to do for my children and how I want to speak to them so that they don't feel the way that I felt as a child, or they don't feel left out or abandoned. So again, we live and
Yeah.
we learn, and the powerful thing about it, you have those of us that are like us, where we take those experiences and we turn it into something better. But then you have the flip
Hmm.
side. That's how I was treated, so that's all I know. So that's how I'm gonna treat my kids. I went through it. They strong enough. I was strong enough, and it's like, well, did you like it? Well, how did it make you feel? You didn't like it. It didn't make you feel good. So why would you, in turn, continue that cycle of toxicity? So
Oh my gosh, exactly. Yeah, so true. Yeah.
oh yeah, so shout out to everyone who's listening, all the parents and guardians and grandparents who are making a change in the lives of these youth, because they need it. They have so many pressures now. They have the internet, they got all the stuff on the, like the things we dealt with, we dealt with the overeating, the bulimia, the anorexia, the mean girls. Now they get to see like so much more on the internet, and there's so many more pressures for them now that
Exactly.
they need parents and people behind them that are uplifting them daily, because trust
Yeah.
me, the world will beat them down, and next
Hmm.
looking like, what happened to my child? Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
and they don't always tell us like what's going on. That's why you have to like really be in tune with your kids too. You kind of off. What's going on with you? Like, what happened? Are you, you know?
Oh, it's so
Yeah.
true. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's so true. And it takes a village, making sure that they're heard and that we hear them. And my kids, I made sure they all had a therapist, like their own separate therapists. And even, I liken it to, having a checkup at the doctor, or, a couple of them, one of them loves going to the gym. And I said, but you don't stop going to the gym when you're fit. You go because you enjoy it and love it. And I said, to maintain your health and care for your body. And that's a priority of his, my son's right now. But so I said to him, and he had done some work with a therapist, and now it's just an occasional check-in. But I said to him, but let's just have this occasional check-in, because it's then, then your child has, I mean, he's 17 now, but it's a safe a safe space. It's someone he can just talk to. I think they all need that. They need somebody who's not mum and dad that they can go to and share and work through stuff with. Yeah, and he can see it's like it's beneficial. Maybe that's, yeah, whoever that person is in that child's life, whether it's an aunt or an uncle or someone through a church or whatever it is in their life, our kids need those people outside of us to talk to as well, a safe space. So for me, that was very important. And I mean, it's, they of course agreed and recognized that. I mean, as I said earlier, there's no sense in sending someone to therapy or to a therapist if they don't want to go. But I've seen it's my kids, especially navigate the bullying at school and the social media and all of the angst that comes with, gosh,
Yes.
being a 17-year-old in high school and dealing with the stresses.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And this is no shade or anything to anybody who spends a lot of money for prom, but even like during like prom season, these
Yeah.
kids are wearing
Yeah.
$5,000 shoes, and then it's like you have the kids who parents maybe can't afford it or just is not in a position to buy those type of things. And now
Yeah.
they have the pressures of trying to keep up, and it's
Mm,
another reason why it's important to make sure that it's okay to wear the nice things, but how are you mentally and how are your grades?
exactly. Oh,
So
exactly. And no, you're right. And it's that's really tough. And I think what's important is that our kids recognize that, yeah, the person with the $5,000 shoes, it doesn't make them a better person. They're not more worthy because they might have the dress or the bag, or the shoes, whatever it is. It doesn't mean that they're worth more or less than anybody else inherently as a human. It doesn't make them a better person. Yeah, and I
absolutely.
think that's what our kids need to remember. Yeah, it's sure it might look pretty. They might be stunning, but it doesn't. Yeah, it's not going to improve the quality of their life. And it's not going to make them a better person or a worse person. Yeah,
Absolutely. So one of the last questions I do want to ask you is what was the hardest chapter to write in your book and why?
it was. I'd have to say it was writing about the divorce because it was so painful, and even more so when I left my husband because he didn't want the divorce. I mean, we are friends now. We co-parent really well. I'm very lucky that we have a really good co-parenting relationship. But that was tough to write because I knew that. I mean, names were changed, of course, in the book, but he didn't want to be written about. So there were certain things I omitted just to respect his privacy. But I also I needed to tell enough of the story. I needed the reader to recognize like where I was at that point in my life on my journey. So I had to honor that while balancing honoring the story with respecting his need for privacy with regard to certain things that just would have hurt the children had they been in print. And I thought, no, my kids were already hurt by the divorce. I didn't want further pain for them. Like they didn't ask for this. So that was really tough. But I'm grateful for his love and friendship now. And I do love him very, very dearly as a co-parent. I mean, he's the father of my children. So I was really mindful of being respectful, and I've just, as I say in the book, I really just have always just wanted him to find happiness again, which he has now. So, yeah, thank goodness for that. Like, I'm really relieved.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much. So, is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with, any words of encouragement or anything that you'd like to say to someone who's listening who may be struggling with an addiction of some kind, whether it's eating or anything that they feel they need to do to feel avoid?
Yeah, absolutely. I would encourage people, number one, just let's all just remember to be kind to each other, whether you see someone in a large or a small body, like it's none of your business. So please just be kind to that person. But with regard to the void and that emotional eating, I would ask yourself, like, I mean, my book is called Always Hungry because I was, but not for food. So ask yourself, like, what are you hungering for in life? Like, what are you missing? Like, what's really going on? And then if you know it's not physical hunger when you're in the kitchen, then perhaps it's time to see a therapist, to go and grab a book on emotional eating. I mean, there's lots of great ones out there. Of course, there is. There's mine, but of course, there's lots of other terrific work out there. So I would encourage people just to ask yourself, like, yeah, what are you really hungry for? Because when I did that, it was a game changer. Because it was like, yeah, I wasn't hungry for the cheesecake. I was hungry for life.
Absolutely. Well, Jane, I
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on the Healing Version podcast. Can you please leave us with all of your socials and ways that we can connect with you, and also how we can keep in contact with your books and actually
Mm.
purchase books and find out about new books that you have coming out and any other projects?
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm finishing up the second manuscript now, my second book, and Jane McGuinness, the author.com. People can go to my Substack, All Things Moderation, and my socials are all Jane McGuinness, the author, Jane McGuinness on Facebook. Yeah, and I can put all of that up so we can share that with everybody. And thank you to anybody who is curious.
Absolutely. And I'll put all of her information in the show notes of this episode so nobody has to write it down or try and figure it out. It will be all in the show notes for you to go so that you can connect with Jane, purchase her book, find out about any new projects and all the other things that she's doing in the aspect of writing and all the new books she's going to have coming out. Jane, again, I thank you so much for joining me today for another episode of the Healing Version podcast with me, Deborah. And until next time, everybody, thank you so much for being here, and we are out. Peace.
Thank you so much, Deborah. My pleasure. And yeah, thank you for having me. It was, yeah, really awesome.
No problem. Thank you. Peace,
Thank you.
y'all.